Hi guys, it's Pete from MyJewelryBench.com. Today we're going to talk a little bit about why you as a jeweler or a jewelry designer who is using your Elegoo Mars printer should never be afraid to use Blender. We're going to talk about some of the features that we use in Blender to make our great designs. So let's get started. Thanks. Okay guys, let's get started with Blender 2.8 and a few functions or a few things that I want you to get used to over the next, let's say 4 or 5 days. I want you to practice these things and start getting yourself used to using Blender 2.8's modeling tools. We're only going to cover a few things today. I'm going to keep this nice and simple, and I'm going to gradually work you into working with Blender 2.8 to design jewelry over the course of the next couple of months. The reason is I want you to get used to using the basic functions and understanding how Blender 2.8 works. Now, to use some of the functions in this, I want you to go and turn on one of the add-ons for Blender 2.8, and I'm assuming that you've already installed Blender 2.8. You can go to blender.org and download it. There's a Mac version and a Windows version. Both work identical. There are very, very few differences between the two, so don't worry about it. As I work on both PCs and Macs, I will cover both of these. So let's go to the File menu, go down to Preferences. I want you to take a look at this little search line here. Put your cursor there and type in Bool, B-O-O-L. And I want you to make sure that the Boolean tool is added, okay? If there's not a check mark next to it, make sure there is, and then come down to the menu option here and click on Save Preferences. Then you can close this. First things first, let's take a look at this cube. And the first thing I want to teach you is how to work with measurements in Blender. Now, I'm going to keep this very simple because I'm a simple person. I like to do things quick. I want my customers happy, and I want to spend as much time making them happy as possible. When you open up Blender, you are presented with this cube in your 3D working window here, and you have your tools options along here. You have your model functions in this tab, and we can turn that on and off with the N key. So if I turn that on and off, you can see it kind of comes up and goes away. In here I have our new tab for our Boolean tools, and then we have our item. If you have an item selected, it will bring up its dimensions, its scale, things like that. I need you to remember that you should use a keyboard with a numeric keypad, and if you don't have one, you can buy a USB numeric keypad for your, let's say, notebook computer. It'll plug into the USB port. I'll put a link in the description below where you can buy that on Amazon. It is an affiliate link. I'll make a couple of cents when you buy one, if you do buy one, and I appreciate that. It doesn't cost you anything. Hitting the 7 on your numeric keypad will bring up a look down, or a straight view perspective downward view, and we can zoom into this cube, and we can see that each of these big blocks would be, in theory, in Blender terms, a meter, or a blender in millimeters. So every Blender unit, every square you see here, which would be the equivalent of an STL file millimeter, if I export this cube, it would print on my Elegoo Mars 3D printer a 2 millimeter by 2 millimeter cube. So I want you to keep that in mind. So I'm going to look down again at this, if we can get my keypad to work here. And we have a cube that is 1 millimeter by 2 millimeters by 2 millimeters. So that's our first thing. The second thing is I want you to learn how to use the scale tool. So you can do things like you can scale it here. If I wanted to make this, let's say 4 millimeters by 3 millimeters by 2 millimeters, I can type in values there and have this block or this cube exactly the right dimensions. Again, disregard the M here and just consider it millimeters, because we're working with 3D printers. The STL file is going to come out in millimeters, and that's all you need to know. The second way to scale this, and there's a big thunderstorm going on, so if you hear some crashing, it's the lightning and thunder, The second way to scale this is pressing and releasing the S key, and you can see my cursor turns into a double arrow. That, or you can hit the Control or Command Z to go back. So that's how we scale. The arrows here will allow you to move. Those may not be turned on, but you can turn them on right under this particular little option here on Blender 2.8, and you can turn on Move and Scale. So with that said, I'm going to show you if I grab the arrow, I can move it. If I grab the block, I can scale it. Okay, now that's scaling, that's dimensions, and now we're going to try one more thing, and these are the three things I really want you to go practice for the next few days. Let's take a look at how we make a basic ring. And if I walk through this relatively quick, please just slow down the video, watch it over and over if you have to, and then practice, because I want you to learn these before we get on to the next step. I am going to create a new Blender file. So we're going to start over, and there's our basic cube. I'm going to right click on it and go down to delete and get rid of it. I am going to make a basic ring. We are going to press and hold the Shift key, and then press and hold the A key, release both keys simultaneously, and you will see it brings up the Add menu. We can add any of these objects here. We're going to add a mesh object and come down to Cylinder, and it adds in our cylinder into our viewport. Now I want to rotate this along a 90-degree axis, the x-axis. To do this in 90 degrees, we're going to press and release the R key, then press and release the X key because we want to rotate it along the x-axis. Then use the keyboard, type in 90, and then press Enter, and that rotates our object 90 degrees along the x-axis. Let's zoom in. I am going to scale it along the y-axis. I'm going to hit and release the S key. I'm going to hit the Y key and then release it, and now I can scale it only along the y-axis. And I'm going to make it about there. Now if I hit the S key only and you can see, and I scale it or I move my mouse, you can see what I'm doing is basically I'm rotating the entire, or I'm scaling the entire object. Okay, if I only wanted to scale it, now that does not look like a ring. So what do I need to do? Well, I need to cut a hole through it. So we need to carve a hole through this object to make it into a ring that will fit on someone's finger. So here's how I do that. I am going to grab this object that now looks like a hockey puck. I'm going to hold the Shift key down. I'm going to press the D key and release the D key, and then release the Shift key. And I'm going to press the return key. So Shift D and then the return. What I've done now is I've made two copies, and I have one copy. This is our copy here, and this is our original. Now I'm going to give this a new name. I'm going to come over here to where it says cylinder, because that was what we added, if you remember. I'm going to call this ring, R-I-N-G. Now this object here I'm going to call cutout. So it's labeled here as cylinder.001, and I'm going to call this cutout. So this cutout's going to act like a stamp, and we're going to punch a hole right through the original and make it into a ring. But you can see it's exactly the same size as the original. So if I did that now, I would have nothing but problems because I can't make a paper thin ring. So I'm going to size this down, and I'm going to size this down with just my mouse. I'm going to press and release the S key, and then I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to move it towards my ring, and I'm going to look at it and say, is that about how thin or thick I like my ring to be? And I'm going to make this a little smaller so our ring is a little thicker. And about like that. Oops. Oh, I missed out there. There we go. About like that. So I've got a nice thick heavy band here, my hockey puck, but it still does not have a hole in it. And what I want to do now is I want to stretch this, our cutout, along the y-axis, which is the green, and I'm going to hit S and then Y, and I'm going to make this wider. S and then Y scales along the y-axis only. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to make sure that my cutout is now highlighted. I'm going to hold the Shift key. I'm going to highlight the ring. I'm going to click on the ring while holding the Shift key. Now you can see my cutout turned orange, my ring has turned yellow. The first item selected, whenever you select multiple items using the Shift key, will be orange. That is, in this case, the item that will be removed or discarded from the first object. So you select the cutout, hold the Shift key down, and then select the ring, release the keys, and then you will find that you end up with something like this. I'm going to come over to the Edit tab here, and I'm going to then press the Difference key. And there it does what it does best, and it removes a big hunk from the middle of our ring and leaves us with what looks like to be a rather squared off round band. These are the things, guys, that I want you to practice. And you can do this with multiple objects. I mean, I can select any object by creating a new one, and I'm going to move this over here. Just like that. I'm going to highlight it there. I'm going to hold the Shift key down, grab our ring, and I'm going to do that again, difference. And now you can see, with the exception of the fact that we have some errors in here, we'll cover that later. And then in the next video that pertains to Blender jewelry and designing jewelry with Blender, I'm going to go into the next step and we're going to cover some more things. And if you like this video, guys, please share it and give it a thumbs up. The more shares you get, the more views I get. The more views I get, the better my channel does. And I appreciate every little bit that you guys can help. Thanks for watching. Enjoyed these videos, and be on the lookout for a whole lot more that's coming in the next month or two. Thanks, guys, for taking the time to watch some of my videos. I really appreciate it. If you like these videos and you find them helpful, please give me a thumbs up. And if you want to see new stuff that I put out, usually on a weekly basis, hit the subscribe button and you can get notified by clicking on that little bell. I really appreciate any sharing that you can do, and the thumbs up that I get if you like these videos kind of helps with my channel to grow. You'll see that in the descriptions and on my website I do put affiliate links to products that I show and use in these videos. Those affiliate links give me a little small commission. Doesn't cost you anything if you buy them. And when you buy within the first 24 hours of clicking on those links, I get a tiny little commission that helps keep this channel going. Any little bit helps to keep this up and running. Again, thanks for taking the time to watch it. If you liked it, hit that thumbs up and share on social media. Take care, guys. Happy watchmaking and jewelry making.